The Nashville Predators are riding a winning streak and battling for playoff position, but will they get there? And Kimmel of Locked On Predators is here to talk about that and what we might expect from them at the trade deadline. All that and more on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host of Locked On Predators, and Kimmel, and nice time to be a Predators fan right now. They are on a winning streak. What's been the difference during these last few games that has them back on the winning track?
Well, I think one was they got a really big wake-up call with a loss against Dallas at home 9-2. And Barry Trotz and Andrew Brunette really had some frank conversations. They may have been brief, they may have been colorful with the locker room about what the expectation was for the team and what the standard was. And the team has really responded. So I think part of that was that wake-up call. I think there are a couple other factors. Number one, the Predators right now are getting phenomenal goaltending from Juuse Saros and also Kevin Lankinen, who's come in this past week. So I think goaltending has been a big key. Both goaltenders have really settled into their games. It was up and down for a little bit this season for Juuse Saros, but he's kind of back to that vintage Saros. Another factor that I think has been really helpful for the Predators is they have been going with consistent lineup. And for much of this season, Andrew Brunette has kind of tinkered with the lineup, especially with some of these young players who, when they were struggling, he would maybe set them out for a game. And he really hadn't nailed down lines that really had some chemistry. But over this win streak, he has started 4 consistent lines, and you're seeing that chemistry build. So I think there's a couple of little things that have come together to really lead to some success for the Predators right now.
Is there one or two players who have been on a little bit of a hot streak that have been catalysts for this winning streak?
Yeah, actually, a couple of players have been so close to breaking out this season, but hadn't gotten there and finally are. One of them is Tommy Novak. And Novak started the season pretty well, had an injury, and then really struggled to get back to his game and to kind of settle in and find chemistry with his line mates. But he has 9 points in his last 9 games, including 4 goals, generating a ton of chances with his line mates, Luke Evangelista and Mark Jankowski. Luke Evangelista is another young player that's kind of playing with a lot more confidence, a lot more swagger right now. And it was one of those things where he wasn't having a lot of success scoring, maybe getting a little nervous about that. But once he found the back of the net, I think he's settled in. And so you're seeing some of these younger players getting more and more comfortable playing these NHL games and building chemistry with each other.
With a young team, confidence is always a big part of success. How confident do you feel this locker room is that they can really make the playoffs?
I think there's a lot of confidence in this locker room. And I think it was a confident locker room even when they were kind of struggling. I think that these players have felt like we have the right pieces to exceed expectations. And I think they felt like if we can just get a couple of things together, we're going to kind of reap the benefits of what we have. And we're seeing that now. And it is a confident locker room, which is surprising. Because like I said, nobody really expected much of this Nashville Predators team this season. But I think right now they're very focused on making the playoffs. And I think they feel like they're a team that deserves a chance to make it into the postseason.
One thing that's sort of been an issue for most of the season is special teams haven't been very consistent, as I can see by your reaction. Talk to me about that. Have they been better over the winning streak, and what changes, if any, have been made in those areas?
Yeah, special teams has been really rough for the Nashville Predators. And that's one of the things, like, you have to have special teams if you want to be successful in getting into the postseason even. Andrew Brunette spent a lot of time over the All-Star break really focusing on the power play. The power play just has not been able to get a lot of momentum. So he watched a lot of film. He kind of tinkered with the personnel on the power play and kind of shifted some players to the second unit, brought up Cody Glass to the top unit. And it's made a little bit of a difference. We're seeing at least a lot better chances. We're seeing more zone time on the power play. It's just a matter of getting those shots to go in the net. So we're seeing potential, but again, potential does not win you games and potential does not get you into the playoffs. So it's definitely an area of focus for the Nashville Predators right now.
And how about the PK?
Yeah, what's so funny is they've got some amazing penalty killers, and yet statistically, this is not a fantastic penalty kill. I think part of that is they have committed penalties against teams that are going to make you pay. So, when you're facing a team like Edmonton and you commit penalties, that's just, you might as well just put the score up on the board. And they've done that in some games against teams with really successful power plays. But it's interesting to me because you watch the penalty kill and all of the pieces are there. They've got some terrific personnel, but they just haven't executed as well as they've needed to. So this is another area where, again, if the Predators want to make the postseason, they've got to improve on the penalty kill.
Talk to me about Filip Forsberg. He's having another great year. What makes him so dynamic and special?
Filip Forsberg is thriving under Andrew Brunette's new system. It's all about offense. It's about puck possession. It's about creative playmaking. It's about shots. And that is Filip Forsberg's bread and butter. And so I think he's able to really focus on the things in his game that are really exceptional. It certainly doesn't hurt that he's playing on a line with Ryan O'Reilly and Gus Nyquist. The three of them have been very, very good at different points in the season. Over the weekend, he scored a goal and an assist against the San Jose Sharks, became the Nashville Predators' second all-time leading scorer in franchise history, passing David Legwand. So there's a lot going really well for Filip Forsberg right now.
All right, trade deadline is about 2.5 weeks away. I've heard rumors that the Preds are going to be sellers. I've heard rumors that they're going to be buyers. I've heard rumors that they may just stand pat. What do you see coming down the pike at the trade deadline? And, is this team happy with just being in the playoff race because they're a year ahead of schedule? Or do you think they really want to go all in and try to nail down one of those playoff spots?
I think they're definitely committed to trying to get into the playoffs. Andrew Brunette has said, look, one of the best things we can do for these young players is get them in the postseason because it's a different animal playing in the postseason. You've just finished 82 games and now you are playing some of the best teams in the league, and it's win or be done. And so I know that the team is very committed to trying to get into the postseason and get that experience. I don't think Barry Trotz is willing to make big moves that are right now moves. He's really looking for the moves that are going to continue to set this team up in the reset that he has kind of planned for like a 3-year window. So I don't know that we won't see any moves. I think that Barry Trotz is picking up his phone. I think his phone is ringing quite a bit over some specific players. So, I'm not saying that they won't do anything, but I think any move that Barry Trotz makes is going to be with a long game in mind. He's not going to sacrifice the long-term plan of getting this team back to contention for getting them into the playoffs this season.
So what would they be looking to add positionally if they do add?
I think what they really are looking for is another dynamic offensive player. And this is going to be hard to come by because, first of all, you're going to have to offer something amazing. And that something amazing could very well be Juuse Saros. So it's going to be a big deal if it happens. But I think what Barry Trotz really wants is something along the lines of a Forsberg-esque piece. He wants a piece that is going to be dynamic offense. He's probably looking for somebody who's definitely going to be a top 6. He's going to look for somebody who's a little bit younger that will kind of grow with this reset. But he really is looking for that piece that's going to add into a core that 2 to 3 seasons from now is going to really help this team be a contender.
So not a rental, obviously. He's looking for somebody who's going to stick around.
Yeah, I think he's looking for a long-term piece. If he can get it at the trade deadline, I think he'll absolutely pull the trigger on that. But I think he is keeping the long game in mind.
All right. And why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you and your co-host on social media?
You can check out Locked On Predators anywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. We're on YouTube. You can check us out on social media at LO_Predators. And you can find me there at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
All right. And always a pleasure. And I know you'll have everything covered with the Predators down the stretch.
Absolutely.
Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. We're past the halfway point in the season, hockey fans, but regardless of where your team is in the current standings, I want to remind you that you can win big playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McDavid, Crosby, or McKinnon will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, hockey fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability.